This video is an overview of the Datazen Server, its configuration and administration. Datazen is a product that provides an intuitive, easy-to-use interface to the Microsoft BI stack. Datazen native clients are available for Windows, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and all can be downloaded for free from each platform's app store. For more details on the Datazen client, check out the Datazen client overview video. The Datazen server itself runs on Windows Server, either 2008 R2 64-bit or Windows Server 2012 64-bit, and it serves all the content to the clients. This is a crude diagram of the Datazen server. The server runs a web app in IIS and handles all client communication via HTTP or HTTPS. Internally, the Datazen server box on this diagram is made up of the core server and one or more web servers. This allows for easy scaling, as core and web servers can work on independent machines, and you can easily configure multiple web servers to handle thousands of users via a load-balanced environment. Internally, the core server runs 3 Windows services behind the scenes. These services process the core server tasks such as user authentication and authorization. They update the data from the data sources and handle internal rendering if needed. Now, to show you some of the server configuration options, I will log into the Datazen control panel, which is the administrative interface to Datazen. To access the Datazen control panel, you can always go to the server location /cp. I will log in as the administrator, and the first thing I see here on the home screen is a list of available hubs. Hubs allow for easy separation of data and content between logical entities. They're really useful if you host multiple clients on the same server or you have different departments that you don't want to share any data between them. Because hubs, they don't share any dashboards or KPIs or data sources, but you can still have one user be member of multiple hubs. So you always have to have at least one hub in which you can add users and add dashboards and so on. So on the left-hand side here at the top, I have the server menu. And this is really related to the server configuration, where you can see the server configuration. You can also set up, configure authentication. Datazen Server can authenticate users either via an existing Active Directory, which basically means users can use their usernames and passwords that they have on this Active Directory. Datazen also supports ADFS, and it also has an internal default mechanism which allows you to invite users based on their emails, and then they can set their own password. This is very useful if you have a demo environment and you want to invite different users to try it out, or if you want to set something up quickly. The server users, this is where you add users to Datazen. Email templates, this is where you can configure the automated emails that get sent when you add a user or invite a user, or when someone forgets their password with the default authentication mechanism. Branding, Datazen has a concept of branding where you can submit a brand, upload a brand package, and basically all clients that connect to the server, they will get the branding package, which means their clients will be branded with their company logo and company colors, and the Datazen branding is brought down to a minimum. And branding can be applied for each hub on the server if you're hosting multiple clients on the same server. The log viewer is where you can view the latest logs from the server. The backup is a place where you can create a Datazen backup, either just right here and now, or you can make it run on a schedule and in a location wherever you want it. So this here at the top is the server menu. On the bottom is what we call the hub menu, and this is more content related and is related to each hub. So here we can configure KPIs, dashboards, data sources, add custom maps, invite users, put them into user groups, and so on. So I will start with users. This is where you can invite users to the hub, and you can give them a couple of permission settings. One is to be a publisher or not. A publisher is someone who can create dashboards or edit dashboards and publish them to this hub. And basically, this is what that setting does. An owner is someone who can log into the control panel and change all these hub options in the control panel. So they can delete dashboards, add data sources, change some of these settings. So that's what you can configure there. Now, we also have a concept of user groups, and really this is like anywhere. You can create multiple user groups and add them there, and this just allows for easier permission settings. When you're setting permissions for on dashboards or dashboard groups, you can do that for either user groups or individual users. And you basically can do this for dashboards, for data sources, for KPIs, or activity. This is the social commenting aspect of Datazen. So I will go through some of the most important options here. First, let's go to dashboards. This is where you can see all the dashboards published to the hub. Dashboards are put into dashboard groups, and you can create new groups, or you can move content dashboards between groups. The point of a dashboard group is just so that the dashboards which are in the same group, they appear together on each client. You can also delete dashboards here, or change their order around here, or you can hide them on the main screen. This is sometimes useful for dashboards that you can get to through a drill through action, so you don't want to have them visible on the first level. So in addition to dashboards, there are also KPIs. KPIs are basically key metrics, and this is where you can create a KPI. When you're creating a KPI, there's a few options available to you. First, you give it a name, then you choose number, the format that you're interested in, and then there's a few options here that you can configure. The only mandatory one is value. And for each option, you can choose to either set something manually or execute a query. Obviously, in most real-life scenarios, you'll want to execute a query, and this really depends on what data source is configured for this KPI group. So if it's a SQL Server, it will be a SQL query. If it's a SQL Server analysis services, it'll be an MDX query, and so on. So for each, so you can configure a few things here: a value, a goal, which basically gives you a target, and shows you can compare this. It compares the actual value to a target. You can set the status, which is the background, and you can choose to have a trend, which basically shows just a trend line below. And in addition to each KPI, you can add related dashboards, so users can click on these related dashboards and if they're investigating the KPIs, and you can also add sub KPIs. Now, going into data sources, this is one of the also important sections of the control panel. This is where you connect to data sources, and this is where you configure views inside these data sources. So to connect to a data source, you first of all choose what type of a data source you're connecting. Whether it's a SQL Server, if it's a web service, either OData or generic, if it's some generic ODBC connection, or another database. So once whatever you choose, you fill in the details for that connection. and this is all specific to each connection, and then you can test connection and connect. And once you have a few of these connections, you can go inside each of these connections by clicking on its name, and you can create multiple views here. These views are what are used by the dashboard designers to create dashboards, and this is what they import into their dashboard designer to create a dashboard. So this is a Datazen SQL Server. So this is a SQL Server connection, and each view, I'm just going to edit one view because this is a SQL Server connection. The view is a SQL statement. You can connect to a stored view or a stored procedure or a predefined view on the server. That's fine. But when you connect to a view, you have a few options here. One, you give it a name, but you also can set a refresh frequency. Now, what the refresh frequency does is, first of all, you have an option of running the query real time. And what this means is that each time a user opens a dashboard or changes a filter on this dashboard, the Datazen server will go to the data source to get the data. But if you don't need data to be real time, you can choose for the data to be refreshed once every few minutes or a few hours or a day, and that will allow you to. What happens is the Datazen server will go to the backend data store once every few minutes or hours or days and get the data, and until that period expires, it'll cache the data locally on the server, and it will serve that data to the dashboards. This speeds up things a little bit because the data is cached locally and can also asynchronously be updated to the clients, but also it reduces the load on the actual database. So it's a really useful option depending on what your scenario is. You can also, if you're running a real-time query, you can also define parameters on this query. And what that allows you to do is to pass some values into your query from the actual dashboard. So say you have a time filter or another filter on the dashboard, you can pass the value that the user selected from there into this query and use it inside your SQL or MDX or whatever you're using. So this is available for real-time queries only. Another options you have is allow client data caching. By checking this, you allow the data to be cached on each client. All the data that is cached on the clients is encrypted locally. But what this allows you to do is it really speeds things up for the end user, because the data update process is asynchronous from the dashboard opening or rendering process. So all the data can be updated behind the scenes. So when the end user clicks on a dashboard, they already have the data, so it can the experience is instantaneous basically, because the dashboard is rendered within a second or two, and they have a really good end user experience. This also allows for dashboards to be used in offline mode. So if you're on a train or somewhere where you don't have an internet connection, you can you will still be able to interact with your dashboard with the latest data set that you downloaded when you were online. Personalized for each member, this option allows the username of the actual user to be passed into the query so that you can write custom SQL and get custom results for each user. So those are the data options, and this is basically how you create the data views. Finally, the custom maps, the Datazen map control is based on the S3 shapefile format, and this allows you to upload custom maps, so you can have maps in your dashboards which reference custom regions or trains or seating arrangements and so on. So this is the overview of basically of the Datazen control panel and what it does. Also, each Datazen server, when installed, runs the web viewer. And what the web viewer does is it serves all the dashboards to the end user via HTML5. So this is really handy because you can every user can log in via a web browser and access all their KPIs or dashboards here, and they work just as well as on any client. You can also make selections here, and it should work fast like it does. This is also really handy because this is pure HTML5, and this can easily be embedded into other websites, or for example, a SharePoint portal. Finally, to wrap things up, I just want to point you to the Datazen documentation, which you can find at datazen.com/docs. And this has many useful articles from server introduction and key concepts to installation guide and installation requirements to more advanced topics about authentication and configuration, as well as things such as configuring integrated Windows authentication or embedding Datazen content into custom apps or SharePoint.